Your son, he's gone. He was weak and foolish, like his father. So I destroyed him.
It's an instinct. A feeling. The Force brought us together. We're not alone. Good people will fight if we lead them.
People keep telling me they know me. No one does.
But I do.
Long have I waited. And now you're coming together. Is your undoing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Weak and Foolish Movie Podcast. My name is Mike Tang, and with me is
Job Ang.
In this episode, we will be discussing Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, the latest and supposed final film in the Skywalker saga. For those of you tuning in for the first time, each of our podcast episodes begins with a non-spoiler discussion of the movie, where we describe our thoughts on the film without revealing any specific plot details. This section is then followed by a spoiler discussion where we delve into all aspects of the film. Before we begin talking about this movie, I think it's important to lay out some context about the Star Wars franchise. To say that Star Wars is a beloved franchise is a gross understatement. First of all, it's the longest running mega franchise in the world, going all the way back to 1977 when the original film was released. Now, if you think of other blockbuster franchises, there really is none that can compare to Star Wars. You think of Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. These movies weren't released until the year 2001 and onwards. You could say that James Bond has been around longer, but it's been rebooted several times and doesn't have a continuous storyline like Star Wars does. Basically, Star Wars has been around the world with people for 40 years, so the love and passion for these stories and characters runs very, very deep. No decision in storytelling and characters will be met with unanimous praise or criticism, right? I think this is a truly difficult franchise for filmmakers to navigate. Even the original creator, George Lucas, faced so much backlash when the prequels came out. I think Star Wars is also unique in that it began in film form. All those other franchises I just mentioned started off as books or comic books, and they were adapted for the screen. So when you watch these movies with the twists and turns the franchise takes, it feels apparent that maybe this story was written as the filmmakers went along. You know, there may have been an outline, but sometimes it doesn't seem like maybe they were sticking strictly to it, or maybe all the details weren't completely hammered out. I think this context is important as we discuss The Rise of Skywalker, because the discourse online about this film has been incredibly divided, to say the least. Internet critics seem to hate the film for walking back on themes established by The Last Jedi, while fans praise the film for that very reason. It's been quite heated and passionate, and all that is understandable when you understand that fans love this franchise, and they've been loving it for decades. Job, you are a Star Wars superfan. This franchise has been with you since you were a kid. How many times have you seen The Rise of Skywalker?
I have seen it 3 times now.
All right, there you go, right? Super fan. I think it's only fitting that you start. You've seen it 3 times. You love this franchise. Please give us your non-spoiler thoughts on The Rise of Skywalker. Which side do you fall on? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you kind of in the middle?
I am balanced. To borrow a common Star Wars theme, it's about balance. No, I'm all kidding aside. I like the movie. I actually veer towards loving it, but am willing to acknowledge the many flaws that I do see in this film. I think there's a lot of pacing issues. There's also a feeling that there's a lot missing in this movie. things kind of travel at light speed. The story moves along really, really quickly, and it kind of comes to a head really suddenly. And I'm not a fan of that. I think you and I we're fans of deliberate storytelling and showing and not telling, and there's not a whole lot of that going on here. But when it does start moving, and when all the puzzle pieces, or I suppose pieces of the chessboard, are in place in this movie, it really gets going and is generally a lot of fun. It's a fun Star Wars film. It really calls back to all of the movies in some way. I think they did the best they could to tie it all together, and produce a movie that kind of closes a story that began in 1977. Are there issues? I think so, but we can talk more about that in spoilers. But I would say I enjoy this film, and I also love The Last Jedi also.
It's possible, right, to love both and not hate one, love the other.
That's right.
Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I want to hear what your thoughts are. I mean, how many times did you see it?
I only saw it twice. I saw it opening night with you, and I saw it again the day after, and that was it. So it's almost been a month since I've seen it. But, it definitely left an impression on me. I'm right there with you. I enjoy the movie, although I wouldn't say I love the film. I would say I like it, but my feelings towards it, it's complicated for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. The storytelling, it's definitely the sloppiest and messiest of the entire saga. Like, even the prequels, which are hugely criticized, I mean, from scene to scene, there was like pacing. There was deliberate, scene to scene progression that made sense. In this one, it seems like they were trying to cram a lot of information, a lot of movies into one movie. I think from the first 5 minutes, you can tell things behind the scenes were rushed. And we know that J.J. Abrams inherited this project after Colin Trevorrow was fired from Episode 9 back in 2017. So J.J. Abrams came on with just 2 years to create a story, write it, and shoot the film and edit it in time for release in December 2019. So most blockbuster films have 3 years or so. 2 years starting with no script or story, that is an incredible feat that they had to accomplish. And I think it feels like that they were rushed. Like, I kind of wish Disney had delayed this film one more year. But, it's a publicly traded company. They have shareholders to please. So, I don't envy their position at all. That was a really tough thing to do, and unfortunately, it kind of shows in the way the movie is. I think the way it drops the audience into the story and then speeds through so many beats in the 2 hours, it feels like they had to write this thing in 2 years, in the 2 years that they had. Yeah. There are quite a few twists in this movie, and it feels like a huge course correction from The Last Jedi. I don't hate The Last Jedi. I enjoy it actually a lot. But it just feels to me that as the movie switched, right, from director to director, J.J. Abrams in The Force Awakens to Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi, and then again back to J.J. Abrams in The Rise of Skywalker, it just feels like each movie is trying to correct the previous one or make decisions that the director would like to see. Rather than build on the previous film, they kind of take a sharp left turn. And I feel like for a lot of people, from what I've seen online, for a lot of the critics, it depends on how they embrace the decisions Rian Johnson made in The Last Jedi. I wasn't super committed to those choices. Like, I accepted them, and in some ways I appreciated them, but I wasn't like married to these concepts. So I was actually okay with some of the twists and turns that this movie took. I kind of disagree with you on the ending being like a satisfying ending to the entire saga. I actually kind of feel like this isn't the end, because we've had conclusions to trilogies and to sagas, right? We've had The Dark Knight Rises in this decade. We've had Avengers Endgame. those movies felt like a culmination of the entire franchise, the entire trilogy or saga, what have you. But this movie feels like it is addressing some plot points from previous movies, but it kind of leaves so much open and so much unanswered, and it didn't really reference the other movies like how I think we've come to expect like these final movies to do. That I kind of feel like there could be an episode 10. It doesn't feel like the advertisements made it seem like the saga was coming to an end. I thought we were going to get way more fan service. There was a lot of fan service in this movie, but I kind of felt like it was going to be like Endgame level or Dark Knight Rises level, like a definitive end. I don't feel like this movie is like those other movies at all. But anyways, overall, I like the movie. Definitely a lot of enjoyable moments, but man, it just felt so rushed. And in case our listeners didn't know, the movie was supposed to be 2 hours and 31 minutes, but several weeks before the release, they actually announced 15 minutes were cut from the film. So I really wish they kept the 15 minutes in the movie. I think this movie definitely needed to be longer. All those scenes needed to breathe. I don't mind having a 3-hour long Rise of Skywalker film. If this is supposed to be the end, like, dude, let the material breathe a little and pace it out and answer more questions. I think we're left with way more questions than we started. All right, so Job, do you have any other non-spoiler thoughts before we move into spoiler territory?
Yeah, I think what you said about all the production issues is a major factor in this, unfortunately. It does feel like, I don't know, I don't want to buy into too many of the post-release conspiracy theories, but I do feel like something happened in behind the scenes for this film that caused it to not finish in the way it's supposed to. I am curious though if the narrative is J.J. Abrams he's really great at starting stories and he's never really finished stories well. This kind of just adds another data point to that narrative, I feel, whereas like more questions than answers in a lot of ways. I would gently push back on the feeling that they're setting up more. I do feel like they are setting up more in a franchise building way, in that there's still so much more to this galaxy. It's not like, it's actually hard to do, right? Because if you were to close this story in a satisfying way, and we've had 40 years of Star Wars storytelling now, and so many possibilities and different worlds and planets and all that, like with something like Avengers, right? We're usually earthbound. There's a few adventures in space, but most of the time the stakes of Earth are the ones that kind of get solved. Whereas in Star Wars, you're dealing with the galaxy. You're dealing with all kinds of worlds. So how would you close a story like this without leaving it open for more? And I suppose that's part of what they were thinking, is like, we need to keep this open for the future, because there will be more Star Wars movies. They will keep making Star Wars movies as long as we keep watching them. But I do feel like this story, the Skywalker story, is, for all intents and purposes, closed. And we'll go into spoilers more on why I feel that way.
Yeah,
but,
right.
But there's a lot of this whole, like, it's kind of like what you said. They could do it one way, and some people will think that didn't work. They could do it another way. Some people will think that doesn't work. And I think that's because it's such a big world. It's such a big galaxy now, and we've had so many years to, like, imagine it, and we've had the original expanded universe that got wiped out, and now the current expanded universe that's now canon, and there's all the Old Republic stuff, there's all the Mandalorian stuff, there's all this stuff in Star Wars Galaxy. How can you make something feel final? I think it's a little different to compare this to maybe the Dark Knight Rises, where it's about one hero on one planet. In fact, in one city, almost,
I do have some thoughts on how on how they could have closed it. Like they were kind of going in that direction, but I mean, yeah, we'll wait till spoilers to discuss that.
Yes. Yeah, I want to hear that. I'm excited to hear that.
All right.
Yeah, for all
right.
the listeners, we actually haven't really discussed this. We've texted back and forth a little bit, but we're actually hearing each other's thoughts for the first time, and that's really cool. So I'm excited.
Yep. All right, let's start talking spoilers starting now.
Yes.
No, you're still holding on! Let go!
All right. I guess since we're talking about that, my thoughts on how to end the Skywalker saga but not end the entire story for the galaxy. Dude, take us back to old locations. Coruscant. Have the adventure go to Coruscant. Tell us how Emperor Palpatine, for one, came back. He alludes to it. He kind of quotes himself from Revenge of the Sith. Dude, I think one major mark of these epic conclusions to The Dark Knight Rises, to Avengers Endgame, they go back and reference previous films extensively. I didn't see that in this movie to that extent. So I think one way to unite the trilogy, I mean, she goes back to Tatooine at the end, which is awesome, but expand that a little. I think revisiting a prequel location would have really felt like it's bringing everything full circle. Like they go back to Coruscant, they go back to one of those locations, maybe Mustafar even, to go to those locations for their fetch quest. Even the fetch quest.
They did go to Mustafar, actually.
I mean, was that really Mustafar?
It was.
I mean, was it during the Lightspeed run or whatever?
No, it was the first planet Kylo Ren flew to. It's that big lava-looking planet. That's Mustafar.
Well, I mean, it's hard.
There's no way to know that,
It's
though.
kind of hard
There's no
for
way
me to
to know
tell.
that.
Yeah, that doesn't look like Mustafar. I mean, there's trees. Like we didn't see that when we've seen Mustafar in the past.
Right. Right.
I think
just that.
Yeah. Instead of, I honestly thought the Wayfinder fetch quest was kind of boring. Like that was not interesting to me. And I think in The Force Awakens, they were all after the map to Luke Skywalker. That is an awesome MacGuffin. The Wayfinder, I mean, not so much, right? Like, why not conceal Palpatine in the opening crawl and just have an explanation about maybe a cryptic message sent across the galaxy about the Sith rising again? And we know that this didn't come from Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. So maybe have the MacGuffin to be to find the source of the message. Maybe have Kylo Ren go against like Rey, Finn, and Poe, and they're all racing to find the source of the message. Have Kylo Ren win the fetch quest, and then he's the one to discover that it's Palpatine, right? And then when he finally comes to Palpatine, I mean, even the way we first see Palpatine, he's like just standing there behind a bunch of like vials. It's like it's the way that scene was kind of blocked and set up. It was kind of weird. Like, I mean, have him descend from this. He's on this. He's attached to this machine, right? Have Kylo Ren enter this throne room, this grand Sith throne room, and then he descends, in this machine, like this apparatus, like something grand like that. I think that would have been awesome. And have him have Palpatine explain the story about Darth Plagueis the Wise to Kylo Ren, and it brings the saga full circle. Like, also tell us what about the Chosen One, like how that happened. Was it Palpatine that manipulated the midichlorians or the Force to conceive Anakin? Was it the Force that was doing that to balance everything out? Like, what was that all about? Like, we didn't get answers to that. That was a huge question, I think, in the entire saga. I think another thing is they had voice cameos from actors from the previous movies. We had Hayden Christensen, we had Samuel L. Jackson, Ewan McGregor. Dude, have them show up as Force Ghosts. That would have been awesome, Like, I think that gives a sense of a culmination of this story. Like, this Skywalker story, all these Jedi are standing behind Rey. But instead we get voices. That to me, the payoff wasn't as huge, I think. Especially what was promised in all the trailers. So, I kind of wanted to see more references to the prequels, to the original trilogy. I mean, there was enough with the original trilogy, but I think I would have liked to see more Star Wars mythology. All right. I mean, those are my thoughts on how it could have gone.
Right. Yeah, in reading a lot of the interviews with Chris Terrio after the fact, Chris Terrio is one of the co-writers for the film, and apparently the guy who has to answer all the questions, poor guy, he's been going on another press tour just answering all the questions. But he did mention that in the original script or the story, they had an explainer for how Palpatine became where he is, and had a lot of exposition, had a lot of explanation. Why was that cut? Like, why did the filmmakers or whoever it was decide this isn't that important to this story? It is important.
Yeah.
This is the main villain of the entire saga. Why is he just kind of, oh, he's back? And we heard this broadcast. Now Kylo's hunting him. 5 minutes into the movie, there he is. No mystery, no build-up, no drama.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, oh, there he is. Oh, by the way, he made Snoke. Oh, and he's been every voice. It's like answering all the questions, but in such a ham-fisted, like...
Yes.
So it's like the movie is tripping over itself to get going. It's like, it's like someone who's so eager to... it's like when a runner is starting a race and then just completely falls over himself.
Yeah.
Right out of the starting gate. You know what I mean? It's where is the like Palpatine? Yes, if you want to tie this movie into the rest of the saga, Palpatine being the main villain is like the devil himself, basically. At this point, the fact he was able to survive. And he's been manipulating this trilogy all along. You would think you'd give that character a little more time, or a little more explainer, or a little more build-up, some tension, some mystery. The opening crawl says, "The dead speak." Like, Palpatine's voice has shown up on a broadcast. Like, and that's all. That's all there is. Did you see how they actually put Palpatine's like announcement or broadcast in the Fortnite game?
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Why did you cut that from the movie? And it was a cool line too, but they put it in the game. I don't understand. Where did this movie go? There's 15 minutes that we know of that were just cut. There's got to be way more than that.
I think the decision to bring Palpatine back was an awesome one. Like, that made sense to me. If you're going to finish the saga, and they had a way in, right? They had a way to explain how he survived. Darth Plagueis the Wise, right? That's the story he tells Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. Like, but I feel like they really squandered a chance to make a really cool mystery in this film. Show us the discovery of Palpatine. That is an awesome reveal. Hide him from all the trailers and stuff. If he showed up in the middle of this movie as like the main villain, oh my gosh, I think the entire audience would have gasped. It would have been a great reveal. And when he finally explains himself, it makes sense in the context of the entire saga. It was perfect. It was all like they could have had something really special. And it kind of breaks my heart that this is the way that it went. But I would love to see those 15 minutes back in the movie, because maybe it would have smoothed over some of the decisions.
I really hope it's not one of those things where if they do somehow put those 15 minutes back in, it's just like slightly longer scenes, a little more dialogue, more Janna moments, more moments with some of the new characters we really shouldn't have been introduced. I don't think Janna and Zori Bliss should have even been introduced in this film, because this is the first time Rey, Poe, and Finn are together, like, and having an adventure together. we need as much time with them as possible. This is the last film. This is the last time we get to see all of these characters together. But they add so many other characters, and it just feels like, how many of J.J. Abrams' best friends can he cram into this movie, you know? What was Dominic Monaghan doing in this movie? All he did was say one or two lines, and that was it. And Rose, who was established as like an important character, became nobody in this film. I'm just shocked at. I guess I'm kind of thinking of it from the production side of things. I am mystified as to what happened to this film.
Yeah.
I don't know though. It's making us sound like we hate the movie. Maybe we could talk about some of the things we really liked.
All right. Well, Rey being a Palpatine, that's another point I want to talk about. And
Yes.
it's going to sound negative at first, but I promise you it will turn positive. But I want to explain myself first. When Kylo Ren tells her, "You're a Palpatine," I, along with other members of the audience, groaned. I mean, it was clear in The Force Awakens that they were setting up Rey to be someone of significance, right? Han Solo, the way he looks at Rey in that movie, it shows us that, you know, there's something more to this girl, and he kind of knows who she is. Kylo Ren asks, "What girl?" And it cuts to her in like a very mystifying way. Same thing. Maz Kanata asks Han Solo in the cantina, "Who's the girl?" You know, clearly they like, she's someone of importance, of significance, and The Last Jedi went in another direction. And I just feel like it. At first, when they reveal that she's a Palpatine, it feels so insane to walk backwards again. Like, why couldn't they have a clear plan with this? You know, there needed to be, I think, more explanation on why, how she was a Palpatine, what happened. But I think the middle chapter of this trilogy just wasn't interested in this. I kind of wish JJ just continued what The Last Jedi did. But then I also wish Ryan would have just continued what JJ did in The Force Awakens. But, you know, by the end of the film, I think the theme became clear. Like, Rey being a Palpatine, she's being, like, I think JJ has said it before, like, her family being, her parents being a nobody, that's painful. She wants to be someone of significance. But I think when she discovers who her true lineage comes from, that's even more painful. Because, you know, it shows how, you know, likely she's going to be hated by all the protagonists, to know that she's descended from the ultimate evil, the Emperor himself. And I think the fact that the Skywalkers showed compassion to her and took her in, I was like, okay, well, I see the point now of this trilogy, what it's trying to show. I think I'm going to talk more about that later, but what did you think of Rey being a Palpatine, that twist?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to come clean, and I think this fact infuriated you, Mike, at the time. But for this film, I read a lot of leaks and followed a lot of the online leaks, to put it simply, for this film. So I knew it was happening. I knew it was happening, and honestly, I was prepared for it. And what I didn't like was how it was revealed. It was kind of just like, "Rey, you're a Palpatine." It's like, that sounds so funny. Like, Adam Driver saying the word Palpatine just is such a strange thing. And
it's like, you're a Palpatine. Like, we weren't even aware that he had family, and now there's a Palpatine family.
And can I just, all the memes about Palpatine being able to rear children have been so worth this. I so much. But you know what? I think it's awesome. Like, it gives this story the mythology back. I think when what I love what Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi, it was subversive and challenging to propose to both the audience and to the character, hey Rey, you think you're something, but you actually aren't anything, but you can change that and become great. I think that's great, but it turns it into a kind of a more of a basic human drama. It's kind of it's a little too meta, too real world almost. It took away some of the mythology of Star Wars and the Skywalker's family and like destiny and the Force. I mean, any other story can go in that direction and be just fine, but this is Star Wars. Star Wars is about family. It's about a bigger story. It's about the Chosen One. It's about the family of the Chosen One. It's about the Sith versus the Jedi. And I think when we find out that Rey is actually the offspring of the Skywalker's greatest enemy, I think it's kind of cool. And it makes you rethink, oh my goodness, this whole time they were raising their enemy's child and potentially raising the person that would take them down. But I also love that I think in this film they acknowledge that, right? Leia and Luke knew she was a Palpatine from the start, but chose to continue to raise her and nurture her because they knew that, there's some things that are stronger than blood. That's what Luke Skywalker says in this film. And I love that it's like the most Jedi thing possible to have compassion for the very person that could destroy you, instead of striking out in fear and anger and going like, this is old man Palpatine's granddaughter, we should get rid of her. Instead, they chose to take her in and train her, and I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, there's something terrifying when she's standing there before Palpatine and he's like, I'm the only family you have. I'm like, what a devastating thing to hear. It's like Adolf Hitler is telling you, hey, I'm your only family in this world.
It's like if he was a zombie and like showed up to his current, I'm sure he has family still in this world who have changed their last name. If he shows up as a zombie and goes like, I'm your grandfather, or he would say it in like a German accent, like,
I think so. One thing I want to address that you mentioned about how the Last Jedi basically wanted to say that Rey is no one. She comes from nowhere. Heroes can come from nowhere, and I think that the meta narrative behind that is this anti-elitist, anti-rich kind of sentiment. And that's there in The Last Jedi, where Rose Tico she wants to like put her fist through the entire town, right? Something along those lines.
Yes.
So there is this anti-rich, anti-elite sentiment going around in our culture, and I think the idea that Rey comes from nowhere, heroes can come from nowhere, anyone can be a Jedi, anyone can be powerful. That's an idea that our culture buys, and I don't have a problem with that. But I think the reaction to this movie that kind of reverses that, and she's a Palpatine, like, I'm so shocked by how much they hate it. Like, and it makes me wonder, why are they so against this? Like, why is it such a bad thing that Rey has a lineage? Like, is that the worst thing ever for this character? And I think we kind of talked about this before, but that idea of Rey has to learn how to stand on her own, like, and not draw her significance and her, from any lineage or any family. Like, she is Rey herself. Like, that individualistic idea is very Western, and all these critics who are complaining about it, they're all Western critics, right? I think for you and me as Asian Americans, who, in our culture, we're huge on family. Family's everything. It's all about the family name and loving your family and honoring your parents. So for me, like, that's what I actually love about Star Wars, is that it is about family, and it's about family with all these flaws, but then they kind of overcome them, and no matter how dark a family member can go, like you believe in the good in them and you can bring them back, that message of hope. I love that. I love that about Star Wars. And so I think maybe that's why I'm not as upset about it, because I'm like, I didn't really care for the fact that she's a nobody. Like, I'm fine with it. I've accepted it. But I definitely don't hate it like how a lot of these online critics are hating it. And I think it's just because our worldview and our culture has kind of shaped it differently. And on top of that, I think we're Christians too. And as Christians, family's huge and it's important. All these bloodlines are important. I mean, the New Testament begins in the book of Matthew with the genealogy of Jesus, right? So there's something powerful about that, of your family lineage and where your name comes from. I think that all that stuff is kind of cool. So that's what I loved about Star Wars.
Yeah, I can't help but feel like all the critics who are super angry about this film are imagining it's as if Rey was the daughter of Donald Trump. like can they would hate her so much if that was the reveal, and I think they're imagining that in their heads and it's driving them nuts. But it's like, it's a movie, first of all. It's a film series, and it's not that bad. I don't. We're not talking to anybody probably who listens to us is any of those people, so I think it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes, like, after a while, like, after seeing weeks and weeks of tweets and posts about how bad this movie is and how bad the decisions were, I kind of wonder, did they come from, like, bad homes or bad families? Like,
right.
Do they loathe their families so much that, it's so important for them that this narrative is, like, held up? Like, I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, why they hate it so much. Like, because I think most audiences actually enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, the audience score in this film is a lot higher. All around, I would say, than
it's like the reversal of Last Jedi.
Yeah. Like, I get disliking this movie from the filmmaking perspective, kind of like what you and I have been talking about, Mike. I get, like, that there are issues with how the movie is put together, but being so hung up on that story point is really baffling to me. It could be that they've been waging the online war against all the trolls who hated The Last Jedi for so long that they've themselves became the very thing they swore to destroy, like it's toxic, some of those comments. Yeah, there's one guy who generally we know, I won't mention who he is, online, who generally is pretty positive about movies, but it's about 3-4 weeks now and he is still angry about this film and almost tweets daily about how much he hates it. And it's just, guys, what movie franchise are we talking about? This is the very franchise that says do not give in to hate. Hate will lead to the dark side. And just this strange over anger at what happened here. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. I wanted to ask. Let's change topics because we've been.
Yeah, let's change.
I think you and I both agree, and we kind of, I think, thoroughly covered this territory.
Yes.
This topic. Ben Solo turning to the light.
Yes. Yes.
I actually really like that a lot. Actually, in The Force Awakens, when it first came out, I felt like Kylo Ren had to die. There can be no redemption for that character. He killed Han Solo. Nothing can redeem him. Chewie has to be the one to freaking blow his nuts off. But they bring back Han Solo, okay? And the way that scene is done and acted, that was the only way they could get the audience to forgive him. And oh my gosh, God bless Harrison Ford. He came back to act out that scene. But that scene was actually very moving. And even, like, he didn't even have to say he's sorry. He's like, Dad. And he's like, I know. And it's like, you're kind of calling back to Empire Strikes Back in a way. I love that scene and the way they repeat lines from The Force Awakens. It was beautiful. It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah. It was framed as not a Force ghost. So Han Solo wasn't a Force ghost or a ghost of any kind. He was just kind of a figment of Kylo/Ben's memories. That's why I really like how it's written. You know, Han repeats a few of his lines. Ben repeats a few of his lines. He repeats one of our favorite lines, "I know what I have to do, but I don't have the strength to do it." But it's in a new context. I agree with you. This was the only way we were going to forgive Kylo Ren, aside from a small subset of the fan base who wants Kylo and Rey to bone. But, like, aside from that, like, most of us were saying this is unforgivable. He killed Han Solo. Like, no, that's not, no. You know, he was a big part of why his mom nearly died. And at the end of The Last Jedi, we see Rey seemingly cutting off her connection with him, saying, "Nope, I'm done with you, son," and closes the door on him. So we come into this film thinking there's no way he can be redeemed, but you're right, this was the only way. If his father came back and forgave him and showed him another way, I think that would have been so much better. Or it is so much better.
And I think the way Han Solo is portrayed, even though it's Kylo Ren's memory, I do feel like Han Solo would say those things, and he
That's
would
right.
have like that attitude of forgiveness and just loving his son, even though his son murdered him. Like, and I feel that way now. Like, if my son were to kill me, I would still love him.
Oh man, yeah, let's make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's right. It's a father's love, and
Yeah.
I think that's powerful too. I think this film is about family. If it's about anything, it's about family. And yeah, it's not surprising that, you know, it feels like family as a unit is kind of like devalued in today's society, and I could see why this starts to feel antiquated for some people. But I think it's important that films still show like family. It is a broken family, let's be real. The dad went back to being a smuggler, the mom went back to being a war general, and the son became Space Hitler. But, you know, they're still a family.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, and his uncle nearly killed him. You know, but still a family. But I think it's like, as crazy as family can be, love is a huge and powerful motivator, and that's love is how Kylo Ren turned back to Ben Solo, and his love for Rey too, apparently, is what really brought him back as well.
All right. The fact that Rey takes on the Skywalker name at the
Yes.
end, I just feel like this is ripe for more stories, because now she has a real lineage in Palpatine, but then she takes on the Skywalker name. So to the rest of the galaxy, she's a Skywalker. I don't know who she's going to say is her parents. Is it going to be Luke or is it going to be Leia, right? I think there's a story, a Star Wars story called Bloodline. It was about Leia and about how the entire galaxy finds out that Leia was the daughter of Darth Vader, and it was leaked, and it was used as a political maneuver to take her out. And I feel like in film form, you could do that story with Rey. There could be a threat against Rey and her new Jedi Order to kind of discredit her in showing that she is a Palpatine. She descends from the Emperor himself. I just thought of this just now as you were talking about family, but what if there's another Skywalker out there, a real Skywalker whose bloodline is from maybe Luke? I mean, because they never disclosed if Luke was married or not, right? Or if
That's still open.
Yeah, that's still open. So I think you could have a really interesting story wrestling between these like between the name Skywalker and these different houses, right? It's almost like Game of Thrones, almost. I think that would be like a fun movie, like an exciting mystery. So I don't know. It's just throwing ideas out there on what's possible.
Yeah.
I think
Anything
you.
is possible.
Yeah, and you mentioned before, like, maybe the story can continue but not have the episode titles, like episode 10, 11, 12. And I totally agree. Like, I want to see Rey, Poe, and Finn come back for more adventures. Like, they're so charismatic, they're so fun together. I want to see more of that. I especially want to see Rey again. She's like my favorite Star Wars character of all time. Like, she's one of the reasons why I started loving Star Wars. Like, I was never invested as a fan until The Force Awakens and until she caught that lightsaber. Anyways, just throwing some thoughts out there.
No, that's great. I think there's tons of possibility. Rey, at the end of the film, buries the Skywalker saber that Anakin built all those years ago, and also Leia's lightsaber in the sand, and then activates her own lightsaber, which is yellow. And in Star Wars lore, that's kind of like the yellow blade is for a Jedi who's found balance, and it represents a Jedi who's found balance. And I think that's a beautiful way to kind of close her out. I don't think the movie did enough to show that she found balance, but we kind of feel that in that she, took her darkest tendencies and natures and didn't go that way, and went to stayed with good and found balance. She has a new lightsaber. She has a new name. Tell us some more adventures. Maybe a comic, maybe an animated series,
Disney Plus.
Maybe a Disney Plus series, although it sounds like the actors are pretty done with this for now. I'm down for something animated that's ongoing, that's epic, almost like Clone Wars level. Who knows? The future is wide open. I do think it closes the book on the Skywalker as well. I do wish Anakin Skywalker, who, by the way, is the chosen one. I wish he had some more role in this film. I wish there was some way he could have communicated with Ben Solo and said, hey, those voices were not me. Like when you were talking to the helmet of Darth Vader.
Yes.
That was not me. They went to the effort of bringing back the Darth Vader helmet from The Force Awakens and did nothing with it. Like,
yes.
Nothing at all. Where's Anakin? He's the chosen one, I think in the visual dictionary, which I got, there's the idea that I think it's either there or some of the other story group people tweeting about it, but the idea is there's more than one chosen one, in that, there's a chosen one for each generation or something like that. I don't like that. It kind of cheapens it. It cheapens Anakin's story.
Well, thankfully I think as long as it's not in movie form, I think we're good, because most people are not going to be aware of that. They don't have the visual dictionary. I mean, that could always be retconned or changed in some way.
True. Although those are treated as canon as much as possible. But what do you think of... I wanted to ask you what you think of that dyad concept. A dyad in the Force, where two represent one.
Yeah.
It's like a duality in the Force almost.
I love it, and I wish they play that up more in the film.
Yeah.
There was what was it called? The Mortis arc?
Yes.
In Clone Wars, where we see that concept play out, where Anakin ends up on this planet, this Force-sensitive, Force-strong planet, where there's a boy and a girl who are strong in the Force. One's strong in the light, one's strong in the dark, and then you have their father who's balanced. It's such an awesome concept. Like, give us more of that. There are so many elements of a great story, and I kind of wished The movie was more about Ben and Ray being that the dyad. It came and went. He introduced the concept and then it was gone, basically. Like, I wish, dude, I wish they had a chance to fight Palpatine. The two of them. That would have been sick. But immediately when they
teased it too.
Yeah, both their lightsabers go up. I go crazy. The audience goes crazy, and then Palpatine just knocks them to their feet, and then that was it.
Yeah. It was not a good subversion. You expect at that moment for them to have an epic duel or something. It doesn't happen, and that's a shame. Do you like how Ben Solo, when he turns to the light side, becomes like a starving artist? He wears a baggy shirt and looks like he's wearing his Marriage Story uniform, literally.
Yeah. You said he walked off the set of Marriage Story and went into this. I want to see more Ben Solo stuff, because the way he was carrying himself and the way he was shooting his blaster, he reminded me so much of Han Solo. And I think one of our friends mentioned his final words was "ow." Because he makes a jump and he lands hard and he's like "ow," and then that's the last thing he says in the movie.
That's his only line of dialogue. Ow. What did you like? How they had a kiss?
They had to make a choice. All right, they kiss and no one dies, or they don't kiss and one person dies. They had both, and it was really dumb. It's like he brings back Ray, they kiss, and then he dies. It's so silly.
But I think it's also for Ben to atone for his sins, is to give his life. You can't have it both ways,
Yeah, then don't kiss each other. Like, I think it's in sequence. It looks really stupid and cheesy.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And I saw it 3 times. Each time Ray went in for the kiss, the audience, at least 5 or 6 audience members, go like, "Oh." No one was like, "Ooh," like excited or anything. It was just kind of like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like, where was this whole time? Like, I would have been satisfied even if they hugged or embraced, like, and let's not go there yet. Let's not go there with the kiss. Like, it would also make the sacrifice, finding out later on that Ben kind of passes away. It almost makes it seem kind of trashy, almost. Like, it didn't feel as impactful because, woo, let's kiss. Yeah, thank you for saving my life. I'm gonna kiss you now. It's like, what? What would have been so emotional, I think, for me, would be if they embraced and Ben slowly started to, like, vanish while he was in her arms.
That would have been so much better.
Yeah. Can you
have the ideas.
What that would have been like?
That one was so good.
Release the Job and cut.
Dude, they should bring us into that writer's room.
I know. I don't know what went wrong there. But I don't know. You know what? I do think they were trying to satisfy too many different parts of the fandom. There was a part of the fandom that really, really wanted them to be, like, together in a more sexual way. And I think that was like a nod to that. But it at the cost of story, at the cost of emotional impact, I think it was not worth it. I don't think it was worth it.
No, it definitely was not.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts? I actually I want to share something, like a reflection that I had on this trilogy, but I want to let you talk before I go into it.
Sure. I do want to say one more thing. I want to shout out to Luke Skywalker in this movie. He's my guy. I've loved Luke since I first watched A New Hope 22 years ago now. And to see him at his worst in The Last Jedi, and then to see him at his best at the end of it, and then to see him now guiding the potential new Skywalker in this last film was really satisfying. I really liked it. hit me in all the right emotions. And even he's even self-referenced himself when Rey was throwing her tantrum and burning the TIE fighter on Octo. And then she throws the Skywalker lightsaber trying to get rid of it. And then Luke emerges as a Force ghost and grabs it and just goes like, "A Jedi's weapon should be treated with more respect." And he's like, "What are you doing?" You know, it's like really funny, really Mark Hamill-y, but also it's like Luke Skywalker acknowledging, "Hey, I was a fool in the last film." Or not the last film, but I was a fool when you last saw me. And now I was wrong. I've corrected my ways. I just feel like Luke got a satisfying arc. And this felt very much honoring to kind of who he is and what he's become. And I bought it. I bought the warmth. I bought that, like, Rey coming back and finding her old master, and like it just felt good. I don't know what you thought of that. Also, we got a scene of young Luke training with young Leia. I thought that was kind of cool too.
Oh, I wanted to talk
lasted
about
way
that.
too short. Yeah.
Yeah, but let's get more of that. Like, they can.
Yeah.
Why don't they do an animated show with Luke and Leia? Oh my gosh, that was so sick. Woo. Yeah.
There's
All right.
rumors. There's rumors that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are working on an animated series that is tied in to more of the mainline story of the saga. You know how Rebels and Clone Wars are kind of like, they're there, but they're kind of offshoots almost.
Right.
There's rumors that they're working on a more like with main character storytelling.
So good.
It could be that. Who knows? There's a rumor / announcement last night also that from some YouTube channel that claims they have sources that a new Rebels series is coming out too that will follow the end of Rebels. But anyway, yeah, more young Luke and Leia. That was really cool. Did you like Luke Skywalker in this film?
Yeah, I wish he was in it more. I know she
Yeah.
converses with the Jedi that came before her, so I thought he was going to show up a lot earlier. So by the time he came in, I was a little disappointed that it was so late into the film. But, you know, I agree with you. Like, I like the way he was portrayed in this. He had some good lines. I just wanted more.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts before I kind of go into my spiel?
I want to hear your spiel.
All right, so I guess we'll close with this. As you know, I was looking back on the Skywalker saga on a macro scale. I think episodes 1 through 6, they're essentially about an evil man named Sheev Palpatine, who really screws up a family by luring one of its members, Anakin Skywalker, to a dangerous and evil philosophy called the dark side. And Palpatine's seduction splits the family. Anakin's wife, Padme, dies in childbirth, and their twin children are taken to opposite ends of the galaxy in the hopes that Palpatine may never twist and seduce them to the dark side in the same way. However, through hope and belief in the good in his father, Luke Skywalker is able to turn Anakin back to the light and together defeat Palpatine. And I think now that this sequel trilogy is complete, its message and theme has become clear to me. I think it's about an orphan girl named Rey who is desperate for her family. She's been isolated and living in this desert alone, waiting for her actual family to come. And then she finds family in Han Solo, in Luke, and Leia, the twin children of Anakin Skywalker. In The Force Awakens, Han Solo is the one who takes in Rey and offers her a spot in his crew. In The Last Jedi, Luke is the one who begins training Rey in the Force. And finally, in The Rise of Skywalker, we see that Leia is the one who trains and helps Rey complete her journey as a Jedi. So each member of this family has taken Rey in and given her a chance at a different path in life. Prior to meeting them, she was living in solitude, completely in isolation, waiting for her family to return, not knowing if they were actually even alive. And the Skywalker family became the family that she was desperately longing for. And Kylo Ren senses this in each movie, and he uses it to this desire to lure Rey to his side, to the dark side. And I think the Rise of Skywalker has a huge reveal about Rey's true family, right? And that she is the granddaughter of Sheev Palpatine, the man who plunged the Skywalker family and the galaxy into darkness and dysfunction. So the thing that moved me the most about The Rise of Skywalker is that we find out that Luke and Leia and probably Han, they all knew who she was. They all knew who she descended from. And we see hints of this in The Force Awakens. And I feel like that's when the theme of this sequel trilogy became clear to me. It's about adoption. Despite their knowledge of her true family, each member, they took her in, cared for her. They didn't define her by her bloodline, but by who she was personally. The Skywalker family took the lessons from episodes 1 through 6, and they believed in the good of this orphan girl, just as Luke had believed in the good of Anakin. And so I think the way the trilogy closes with Rey bearing both Skywalker lightsabers, and then when asked for her name, when she answers Rey Skywalker, I felt like it was beautiful. You know, we have someone who's not in this family, someone who was actually could be considered an enemy of this family, actually takes on their name. And I thought that was such a fitting way to end this entire saga. So those are just some of my thoughts, and I think for me personally, seeing it in that way, it kind of gives me clarity on this trilogy, because I always wonder, like, what will we've been watching these movies as they've been released, so all these walking backwards and walking forwards with all these decisions, it's a little bit confusing, it's a little bit frustrating. But I think about my kids when they watch this saga, and especially this trilogy, what are they going to see? I think that'll be a fun experience for them, and I think hopefully they can see it as this.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think that's gonna be kind of the takeaway I would get from this series as well. I'm excited to kind of see them back to back now, or kind of see them as a complete work. And
right.
Despite the production issues, I do think these films are better than they are bad. They're good. They're more good than they are bad. This is a journey that you and I have taken since 2015 as well, and to see it kind of close is bittersweet. But I think we got a lot out of this, and I'm grateful that we did.
It's funny because when we saw episode 7 together, you had a lightsaber, you had all the Star Wars gear that you were wearing, and I had nothing. I just showed up as like a fan of movies. And by episode 9, you had brought nothing with you. And I had a Star Wars t-shirt, a Star Wars hat, and had 2 lightsabers.
Okay, so when you came in that night with your lightsaber and you're like, dude, where's your lightsaber?
I was shocked. That you had nothing with you.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I don't know. But it wasn't because I was any less excited. I think we've changed, or we are a dyad in the Force,
Well, you better be on the same side as me next time, because I'm bringing my sabers.
Okay, I will. I was playing with them right before leaving. I will have you know. I just decided not to bring them.
Much to my disappointment.
I
think it was because of how distraught you were after The Last Jedi, and I think you just wanted to protect yourself, right, from any kind of crushing disappointment.
Yeah. So another fun story for our listeners. For the opening night of The Last Jedi, I brought both of my lightsabers. I have 2 lightsabers, and one of our friends, Mosey, he and I were kind of pretending to duel in front of the theater to kill time. Probably looked really stupid while doing it. And from what Mike tells me, he was walking in with some other friends and was like, dude, who are those nerds over there in the corner just fighting with their swords, and then as
the,
you
the
got
word I
closer-
used the word I used was losers. Who are those losers?
Yes. And as you got closer, you found out that the loser was your friend. Me. That burned. Nah, that's not why. But you're right. After The Last Jedi, we were a little distraught. But, I came away loving that movie. I think that at the end of this trilogy, I can safely say The Last Jedi is the best of the new Star Wars films. Maybe not the one that makes you feel the best, but it's the best in terms of filmmaker. Don't you think it just feels like another grade of filmmaking, if nothing else?
It's definitely a beautifully crafted, well-made film
Yeah.
with lots of themes and just great character arcs and writing.
Yeah.
Definitely, for sure. I agree with
Yeah.
you on that. Although for me, it was The Force Awakens that pulled me in. So I
Right,
think for me,
right.
that's the one that resonated with me. But I'm there with you. I appreciate The Last Jedi so much.
Yeah. The Force Awakens made us feel like it made us fall in love. Again, in some, it felt like everything was new. Honestly, that was the only time in this crazy internet fandom that it felt like everyone was genuinely happy about Star Wars. I remember people were just talking about theories and what could it be and all that stuff. It felt like there was so much optimism, and I think I will forever cherish that period of time where we went to In-N-Out right after and just geeked out for an hour or two just talking about what we just witnessed, and it's a lot different now, but I think I'll always remember that and cherish that, and what Disney and Star Wars and Lucasfilm gifted to us in this trilogy. And yeah, I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah. Awesome,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, I'm there with you, man. Star Wars I love Star Wars. I agree with you. Like, I think I don't really care what all the critics or even fans say. Like, we love it. We love each one of these movies that were released during this period.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun. It brought us together as friends, and yeah, that I will forever cherish that. And I'm excited for more Star Wars. I'm in.
Me too.
I'm a Star Wars fan now, so I can thank you and thank the experience that we had with The Force Awakens.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you.
All right, for our listeners, this will be it for our episode on The Rise of Skywalker. And coming up next is something that I'm really excited about. We are going to give our top 10 films of 2019. It has been such an amazing year in film. And we don't know which movies are on each other's top 10 lists. So I'm actually really excited to hear what Job has on his list, and I'm sure vice versa as well. So please come and join us in a couple weeks as we prepare for that. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you then.
All right. See ya. Peace.